Good afternoon. All right, welcome. My name is Blake Hampton. I'm the president of the Lee County Bar, and we are here for our February membership luncheon in honor of Black history and the law. And first, I'd like to introduce Judge James Adams to perform the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Judge. Now I'm welcoming another judge up to the podium for the invocation, Judge Hayward.
All right. Hello. I wish to share with you parts of a prayer by Kiera Stuflin. And it says, in the presence of the Lord is here. We feel it in the atmosphere. That is from one of the Negro spirituals. And she goes on to say, this holy hour we bring ourselves into your presence, O God. To you we offer our prayers, our praise, and our supplications. This month we celebrate Black History Month and honor the culture of our brothers and sisters. We remember the legacies of those who came before us. Lord, when it's too hard living, we remember you are the great I am and our source of strength and purpose for each new day. Help us in our advocacy efforts with Bread for the World to honor you with our works for justice, healing, and peace in our day. She also goes on to say, God, help us to value diversity beyond variety. Help us to value, and where she has put diversity, I'm going to put in, help us to value each other with a vision for a progressive future that acknowledges our strength together as well as the power, creativity, ideas, and the part that we all bring when we are all welcome to come to the table and to taste and see that the Lord is good. Amen.
Thank you, Judge. And now I'm going to acknowledge the dignitaries, and we'll start with where I just left off. I'd like to mention the Honorable Archie Hayward. The Honorable James Adams. The Honorable Kathy Smith. Honorable Devin George. The Honorable Carolyn Swift. And Honorable Josephine Gagliardi. Honorable Shannon McPhee. The Honorable Kimberly Boselli. And the Honorable Linda Doggett. Now I'm going to check the Zoom chat to see if there's any dignitaries appearing virtually. And we have, I believe, the Honorable Gilbert Perez. And sorry, I know this is a little awkward, but this is our first time trying to do the whole Zoom and Zoom and in-person deal. And there's one more judge, and I don't see last name on there. Let me check the chat. Okay. Oh, all right, I see. Perfect. That's why I was looking around and I didn't I didn't see him, and that makes sense now. Okay. All right, now I'd like to recognize our annual sponsors. Without our annual sponsors, this wouldn't be possible. Start with Copy Lady, Kelleher Law, U.S. Legal Support, Edison National Bank, Fort Myers Court Reporting, Boyle, Leonard, and Anderson, Sanibel Captiva Community Bank, The Vistas at Eastwood, Associates in Bruce L. Shiner, Boy, Agnew, Potanovic, and Miller. He's got his name up there now. Del Lago Law, Hampton Law, Henderson, Franklin, Starnes, and Holt, John Webb Legal, the law offices of Dennis Webb, the law offices of Michael Rahab, Park Royal Hospital, Aloya, Rowland, Lubell, and Morgan, Conrick PR Marketing, and Sexto Productions. And thank you to our lunch sponsor, Joe North. All right, so now, for the first time that I can remember being at a LCBA luncheon and us handling official member business, we are going to discuss and vote on the new amended bylaws. And I welcome my co-chair in this bylaw committee, Spencer Cordell.
Thank you, Blake. Good morning, everyone. My name is Spencer Cordell. I'm currently the treasurer, and I worked on this committee, and it's been a couple of years going now that we've been working on these proposed amended bylaws. If you didn't know, we had a committee led by Blake that was working on that, so I want to thank everyone on the committee who helped out with that. I want to thank Blake, who did a lot of the heavy legwork in that I'm going to center myself up here. Blake researched other bar associations' bylaws throughout the state of Florida. He compiled those, typed those up into some of these amendments that you're seeing today. I want to keep it short because we want to get to the panel, but I do want to mention a couple of highlights from our new bylaws. First, we have some additional classes of membership, including affiliate memberships for individuals like paralegals, law students, some patron memberships, and some other memberships. Additionally, another thing we're excited about is creating 2 judicial liaison posts on our board of directors. We hope that will help engender participation and communication with our local bench. We're excited about that. A lot of technical stuff, cleaning up some problems in the language that we spent a lot of boring time working on that I won't belabor anymore. Before presenting this to the membership for the vote, the committee presented this to our current executive council or board, and they had a meeting to go over it and discuss some of the specifics. So all of the changes have been vetted, discussed by the board. It was put up to a vote for the executive council, and the executive council unanimously recommended adopting these amended bylaws, and that's why we are now proposing it for a vote to the membership. At this time, it is official business, so I would move that we vote to approve the proposed amended bylaws. Can I get a second? Kathy Smith has my second. Thank you. And I will hand it over to the president to conduct the vote.
Thank you, Spencer. Do we have any discussion? All right. Seeing none.
I'll call the question, I guess.
Yeah. All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
There's no nays. All right, the ayes have it. I've always wanted to say that, so. All right, that was easier than I expected. After a year and a half of of laboring through some really exciting material. All right, now I would like to introduce Joe North, our lunch sponsor, to say a few words.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I am so glad to be here sharing this day with you and sharing this luncheon with you. And I want to have a special thank you to our president, Blake Hampton, for putting this on for Black History Month. And also a thank you to our executive director, Lauren Bow, for reaching out to me, asking me to be a part of this program. And when she asked me to be a part of the Black History in the Law program, I'm thinking, well, history? Have I been around that long that somebody's asking me about history? Then I thought to myself, well, I have been doing this now for more than 30 years, so I guess I can add some type of historical perspective about what has happened in our community and how it has been shaped by and formed by the African American attorneys here. And as I thought about it, I thought about two friends of mine, Judge James Adams and Judge Archie Hayward. And I thought about how they've actually been doing this for longer than I have, and how they poured into me, how they showed me the way, the right way, and for that, I celebrate them and I thank them for what they've done for me and what they've done for our community, and also for what they've done for our bar, because they've certainly elevated our bar to where it is today. And also, as I thought about my friends, I said to myself, you know what? Let me go up into the attic and find my scrapbook and see if I can find any news articles about these two gentlemen. And lo and behold, I found one from 1994. For fear of being held in contempt, I'm not going to show you their photographs from back in 1994, unless someone really wants to see it. But this article from somebody saying, yeah, I want to see it. But this article from 1994 had to do with diversity in the bar and where minorities stood. And again, this was back in 1994. And I just want to share with you some of the numbers that were in this article. And some of these numbers may be surprising to some of you. So in 1994, at the state attorney's office for our entire circuit, there were 62 attorneys, but only 2 were African American. There were 32 attorneys in the public defender's office, but only 3 were African American. And between the Charlotte County Bar, Lee County Bar, and Collier County Bar, there were a total of 1,130 bar members, but only 12 were African Americans. And a part of this article was done by Betty Parker, and some of the old timers like me remember Betty Parker from back in the day doing a lot of things with the news press. But one of the things that she asked about and that we were able to conclude is, what was the reason or reasons that there was a low number of African American attorneys in our county, in our city, in our circuit? And we came up with a lot of things, but 2 of the things that we came up with, just from a historical standpoint, was one, a lot of the younger attorneys, African American attorneys, sought the big cities, Miami, Orlando, Tampa, Jacksonville, And at that time, Fort Myers did not have a lot to offer to attract some of these qualified individuals in. So that was one thing. But the other thing that we found is that there was not heavy recruiting for those attorneys. So we sought, and I think that's still the goal today, is how can we do better? And when we look around the circuit now, I think we all have to agree that we've done better, that there is better representation now. We still have a long ways to go, but we're certainly much further down the road of diversity today than we were back in 1994, which now takes me to a little personal story that I want to share with you guys. And it goes even further back to 1990. As I said, I've been doing this now for a little more than 30 years, and I started at Henderson, Franklin, Starnes, and Holt back in 1990. I was doing insurance defense work in the workers' compensation department, and one of my clients was one of the largest insurance companies in the entire state. And one day, that insurance company told the senior partner in my department that it no longer wanted Joe North handling their cases. The writing was on the wall as to why they did not want me handling their cases. But that senior partner and the firm told that insurance company, if Joe North cannot represent you, then we do not need you as a client. And that was impressive to me then, but it's even more impressive to me today, because it really spoke to, and it speaks today as to what the mentality needs to be among our bar members, that we have to rise above whatever may be going on out there in the world and set the example. And if we set the example, believe me, as attorneys, we will have a lot of people to follow us. And that's what happened in that situation, my personal story. And it ends up great because I continued to represent that insurance company. We had a great relationship. And no lie, just last week, I got an email from one of the adjusters that I used to work with way back in the day, because we still communicate, and we've got a relationship now. So I know that has not been everybody's experience. That's been my experience, and I'm sure that when you hear from the panel today, you're going to hear some other experiences that I encourage you to listen to, because we need to look at the totality of the circumstances, a phrase that we're all familiar with, and learning what has been the experience of the African-American attorneys in the past, present, and today. I know I'm over my time. I'm going to leave you with this. One of the reasons why I advertise and market as much as I do, Jim Keller and I were just talking about marketing, what have you. I know you see a lot of us. And a part of the reason is to bring in clients, yes. But for me, it goes a little bit beyond that, because I think it's important for me to be visible in the community, because people have a better respect for the justice system if they see people that look like them. And whether it's on a bus or on a billboard or a TV commercial, I would like to believe that I'm having an influence somehow, some way, on the perception of African-American attorneys, especially to the little ones, the young ones that see it. So that's a part of my story, a part of my history. You're going to hear a lot more from this esteemed panel that we have. But again, I just want to thank you guys for coming out, sharing this with us today, and enjoy. I've got copies of the article for a price.
Thank you, Mr. North. All right. Now, I'm going to introduce our moderator, Adrianette Williams.
How are you guys doing this evening? This afternoon? I'm glad to be here and see everybody all dressed up in person again. In the midst of everything that's going on, it's really just good to be in a room of people. So I'm hoping that everybody's healthy and that we have a great time today. A little bit about myself. My name is Adrienne Williams. I am the former Assistant Director of Professionalism at the Florida Bar. And I worked there for almost 2 years where I delivered over 50 presentations throughout the state of Florida. Before this, my previous career was a college professor where I taught speech and communications for 3 years and saved money to go to law school. I found my passion for diversity a long time ago, my passion for empowering people and helping. And nothing has proven to test those skills more than this past year that we have shared. And through COVID, through the riots and the marches, I think as attorneys and members of the judiciary, we have experienced some sort of impact on some level with what's gone on. And it has been my honor to actually work with some of the families. I actually stood beside the families of Breonna Taylor. I worked with George Floyd's family, and just letting people know how much this personally impacts. When injustice happens, it impacts people. And I say this personally, we are the only ones who stand in between justice and injustice at times. And I come to you here, before I get started, thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Sir President, for having me today. And I cannot go any further without thanking Lee County Bar Association. And I will tell you this, Lee County, I say this, they're not new to this, they're true to this. They have been doing this before it was popular. They have been doing this before it was a trend. They have been doing it before the blackouts of corporate. So let's give Lee County Bar Association a hand clap for authenticity. Thank you guys for having us here today, and it's my honor to be a part of this. I would like to introduce the panelists. We have the Honorable James R. Adams, the Honorable Archie B. Hayward, Jr. Can you, Markeisha Atisley, Melissa Barris, and last but not least, Peter Dennis. So what we're going to do is going to be more of an informal talk today, and I'm going to just ask some questions of the panel. And I know you guys are eating, so I hope you got your food in good before we got started today. And I really would just like us to share our experiences as an attorney and what we've been through. And I'm encouraging an atmosphere of participation and a safe environment for this to happen today. So I thank you guys for being here. I'll start with the Honorable James Adams, because you always have to start with the judge, right? Your Honor, what was your inspiration and motivation for becoming a lawyer?
You know, growing up in school, my sister's name is Adams. You know, you always got the first question right off the bat. But my motivation for becoming a lawyer was pretty much a sense of independence. You know, I grew up, my grandmother raised me, and that's sort of what she taught me, to be very independent and to, you know, strive to be the best I could with anything. You know, as a kid, I didn't see, I guess the black professionals in my community were all teachers, and I didn't see that as my goal in life. And, you know, somewhere along the way I came in contact with a lawyer and said that, you know, I can do that because it gives you the opportunity to help people along the way at the same time.
Okay, thank you. And the Honorable Hayward.
Well, I think I would say basically what motivated me to become a lawyer was that I wanted to help people. And the reason that I wanted to help people because my parents basically taught us that we should be helpful to the others. And my mother, I think, she invented Meals on Wheels because every Sunday we had to take a meal to Miss So-and-so. And before I could drive, it was my dad and I that we would have to take this meal to. And so during the time that I was attending school, as James said, you know, we had a lot of people before us, but before us were teachers, and they were the professionals that you saw on a daily basis. We had a few doctors in the community, but I don't recall having lawyers until I was well into college. And I think the first one that I can remember being in Lee County was Marzell Mitchell. I believe that was, he was the first one. And then there might have been another person, and then Judge Anderson. And the interesting thing about it was that Judge Anderson actually grew up next to my parents' home. And my mom, after he came back and said, oh, he's the young man that used to be next door to me. And he would always come over to the house. And it was one of those things. When I was a little kid, I probably did not know him. But I always wanted to do something that would enable me to help others, because that's what I was taught.
Good deal. Thank you, sir. Mykesha, attorney Mykesha. I don't want to mess up your name. Can you tell us your inspiration for becoming an attorney?
You know, as you were talking to the judges before me, I was thinking, man, do I have a good story to follow that to explain why I became a lawyer? And the thing that actually popped up was I remember family and friends just telling me that I like to argue, and they thought it was a good profession. And I mean, and it just stuck. And so when I went to college, I just kind of like followed that path. But I always thought it would be civil. I always thought, oh yeah, that's the way to go. And that was until I had the privilege of working at the public defender's office, and that's where I found my heart, and especially with defending children. And I realized that that's my calling. So
nice. Attorney Barris, can you please
For me, I grew up very poor. I witnessed a lot of things that I don't think a child should necessarily witness, and I would kind of vent to my grandmother and say, look, something's got to change. Somebody's got to do something. And she would look at me and say, you do something. Go do something that will help make a difference. So laws is, at that point, what I decided to kind of pour myself into.
And Attorney Dennis.
Well, I'm actually Liberian American. I spent my time growing up between here and in Liberia, and as some of you may know, Liberia had a very serious civil war in the late 80s all through the 1990s, and we lost quite a lot of people, and I lost quite a lot of family, and a lot of family became refugees. So one of the things that really motivated me was the opportunity to work with refugees, which is where I started my legal work, and also because of family members and friends who I would play with as a young man, as a kid, who didn't make it, who ended up dying in the war. And I tell you, most of them were smarter than me. So there came to be sort of a responsibility to be their voice and to look after their legacy, their parents, their community as well. So,
thank you. I always say, most of the time as a minority, when we come into the room, we don't get to just represent ourselves. If I mess up, it doesn't just reflect on me. It represents on everybody who may come behind me. And it's a big charge to keep. And I say with a charge to keep, we still have across the bear. And so that's very admirable of you, Mr. Dennis, to share not only what you're doing, but why you're doing it. And speaking of why, sometimes we have to remember that why. I mentor law school students, and I tell them, before you start this journey, you better know two things. Number one, why you're doing it, and number two, what is your line in the sand with ethics? And you guys heard my past position, so I could talk all day about ethics and professionalism because I've seen what it can do. And for someone, and I tell people, there's two lawyers in my family, but I am the only one in my immediate family. And if I lose my law license, that is my livelihood. There is nothing that anyone can tell me or make me do that will make me lose my law license. But that line in the sand has to be drawn before you're in the situation that you have to make a decision. And so we talk about adversity. I have walked away from jobs. I have walked away from opportunities because I love my livelihood, I love my reputation, and I like what I do. I like to eat. I have a passion for having a roof over my head. And so you have to have those sorts of conversations. So when we talk about adversity, that's things on the other side of the bar, as I say. What were some of the adversities that you guys faced as far as making the decision to attend law school, or any adversity that you faced in law school that could have changed the trajectory of your life had you made a different decision?
As far as challenges in making the decision to go to law school, I think my biggest challenge was myself, and whether it was self-doubt or just also wanting to be successful, and my goal was to get into law school. And you know, when we take the exams and everything, you have that pressure on it, and it was probably no more than the average person had. But personally, I said, you know, I'm at the University of Florida, and I want to go to the University of Florida's law school, but there's no guarantee that they'll let you in. But so that means you have to score higher on the exam. So the pressure that I put on myself was that I needed to get the top score to make sure that I gained admittance into the University of Florida's law school. And because of that, you know, I could have possibly not gotten in had I listened to my own advice. I had a study partner who had already got accepted into law school. And as it happened, we were studying one day, and I said, you know, I'm going to retake the exam so that I can make sure that I get in. He says, well, why don't you just go ahead and apply with the score that you have and let them be the one to tell you that your score isn't good enough. And I thought about that, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's fine for you to say because you're already in there. And something prevailed, and common sense or God spoke to me and said, hey, go ahead and send in the application. And I submitted the application. And as I said, had I listened to myself on the next go around, they may not have been interested in my application. But apparently they were interested enough on the first time that I got in. And so had I listened to my self-doubt or my pride saying that you got to get, you know, the highest score so that you can get in, it may not have happened. So I think my challenge for that was just myself. And so sometimes we have to get out of our own way so that we can reach our goals.
I don't know how many other people on the panel experience this, but in law school, one of the things that I experienced was a lot of doubt that was caused by the idea that perhaps I was there to fill a quota. And that was something that often wasn't explicitly said, but a lot of times was implicitly implied. And you had to, therefore, work twice as hard as you may have otherwise, because you had to prove that you belonged there. And I think proving that you belong somewhere where you have been admitted because of your academics, because of the things that you have done. You know, my scholarship was academically based, and still, when I say that defensively, as if it's something that I need to defend, to say, no, I got in on my own merits. But that's something that a lot of my minority friends as well faced, both in deciding whether to go to law school and in law school itself. And unfortunately, I think it's also something that continued to affect my life and my, I guess, the way that I saw myself fitting into the community, even into my career.
Yes, ma'am.
One thing I want to add to it is that I've always been a person that believe I can do it. And the whole idea of going to law school and going to a place, moving to a city where you've never lived before, you didn't have any friends there, and you have to establish a base, you got to find a place to stay, you have to worry about your tuition, where you're going to stay at, how you're going to eat, and whether or not you're going to be able to develop a group of friends along the way. And I think that's probably one of the main decisions that you have to make in there. And fortunately for me, I had the opportunity to have family help me out in terms of the finances that I did not have covered through the college and things like that. So having my family help me out financially a little bit for a couple of years or for a year until I was able to get some more money from the school to sort of carry me through along the way. Those seem to be some of the challenges that you face, financially, otherwise, in terms of getting through school and then moving back to wherever you're going to end up taking the bar and everything else.
I want to talk about, and I alluded to this a little bit, what have been some of the adversities, I need to speak up, I don't mind, what have been some of the adversities that you have experienced, and the panel, you can pick up the mic and answer this question, that while you've practiced, since practicing law?
I will say, when I came to Lee County, there was one other member of the bar that was a minority, and he was on the bench. That was Judge Anderson. And, I didn't choose Fort Myers or Lee County because of the diversity of it. I chose it because, I came over here and sort of fell in love with the city in terms of how it looked. Came downtown, I saw the two bridges, I saw the water and everything else. So I decided this is a place that I can live and practice. And, Lee County really has been good to me along the way. I can't say that I've had challenges in terms of adversities. I think the lawyers here have been very good to me. I've had, while I was a assistant public defender, I've had folks that have come in to ask that I represent them, even though they were not on my docket. So overall, I think the community has been good to me. The people have been good. I haven't really faced any challenges or any type of negativity from the local bar and things like that.
When you asked this question about adversity, I think the thing that sort of popped in my mind is something that probably all of us can relate to, and it's really been about mental health. I have a job that I love and an office that I love, and you give a lot of yourself in that. And over the years you do this, you may not even realize how much of ourselves we're pouring in. And I don't think when I started this job I had any concept that I needed self-care, that I needed an awareness of my stress levels and how to be able to deal with that effectively. So it has been in these last several years that I've been working things in to address that, because you can be working and doing everything that you love and really at the same time be drowning, and it might not be possible for people around you to even know. And so, and I know specifically, especially in our community, it's really hard sometimes, to address the mental health aspect. A lot of times we think, we just pray about stuff, and that's fine, but you can pray and have a therapist too. Yes. And so I think that it's just really good that we, connect and that we recognize that, mental health is important and taking care of ourselves is important.
I think that you hit on something, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because I never even thought about that as an adversity. And I'll be honest with you, this last year of the social injustice affected me so much personally. I literally, when I saw Ahmaud Arbery get killed, hunted down, it did something, it ripped my soul. Like, it literally shook me. And so then the George Floyd thing came. I said, I can't watch the video. I can't watch it. I just can't. And I literally fell on my face in my living room. I was the only one home, and I was like, you know what, God, like I got to do something to help, because I feel, and I know as attorneys, like, we want to help everybody, and I felt so helpless in that moment with everything going on in the world, and I was like, God, like, give me some sort of solace, let me help, right? But the other part of that was I did go call my therapist. And the other part of it was I want to give a big shout out to my boss, Ita Nemotin, because I called her and I said, Ita. And she said, Adrian, I already know why you're calling. And I said, I'm not okay right now. And I'm really glad that I work for a boss who I can call and say, I'm not okay right now. Like, I know it's not me, but it's my people, and it hurts. And then I have to go into work, and I fight for parents who have lost their children, and that's an emotional career in itself. So then I have to put on my armor and fight for my clients every day. It's hard. That's the adversity you face. So not only are you dealing with the pandemic, not only am I dealing with COVID, my mom runs a hospital, and I'm hoping she comes home alive because we don't know what COVID is at the beginning. And this is the adversity we face on top of everything. And so I'm really glad that you mentioned mental health because it's such an important part. Now, I'm going to do something a little different because black males don't talk about mental health. And I hate to put you on the spot today, Your Honors. Don't put me on the blacklist. And Mr. Dennis, let's talk about that.
Well, definitely. In my personal situation, I do find solace in prayer, but as far as knowing the stress that can be brought upon you and mentally, you can have a lot of stress that will cause you physical harm. And again, I'm very conscious of that because mental health problems, there's no one that cannot be affected by that. It's just like all other major diseases. Somebody in somebody's family has had some type of mental health episode. And then when you become conscious of that, then you know that, there's a possibility that it could happen to you. So as a kid, I grew up with a sibling that had some mental health issues. And I didn't understand it because I was, I would always like to say I was a child. So I wasn't supposed to understand it, but I knew it was there. And then my parents had to deal with it on a daily basis. But I look at my parents and I say, my mom, it affected her really, very much because she was the one that was a nurturer. My dad, nothing really seemed to bother him unless it was you did something that disrespected or he thought you were not being appropriate with his wife. So you could get a rise out of him if he thought that was the problem. But mental health is something where you have to say, I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to face it. And I say, for me, I don't deal with stress. I don't like stress. I try to avoid it at all steps of the way. And I like to exercise. That's my relief. I like to be outside, exercising, doing something, and always being involved. So that is my stress reliever. But we do need to be conscious of that. And so I've had an opportunity to, at the time it was the Ruth Cooper Mental Health Center, and I served on that board, so I saw a lot of it. And being a public defender, one of the jobs that I did not know came with that was being the defense attorney for someone who was being Baker acted. And when I had my first assignment for that, I was like, what in the world am I supposed to do with this? You have no mental health training. You have no medical background, and you're asked to defend someone that you're not sure what their situation is. And of course, they say they're fine. So how do I defend somebody who's fine? And the doctor is saying they have a problem, or their loved one is saying no, they have a problem. And so I saw that and said, yes, there is a need. And again, throughout the years, I've seen how mental health has been underfunded, and we turn, a side eye to it. We know it's there, it's in the room, but nobody's saying anything about it. And so I try to deal with it on a personal basis to have an understanding that, yes, those issues are there, and we need to deal with them in every aspect of the law. And you'll have people come to you, and you say, okay, I want to help this person, but I'm not sure if I can. But again, for me personally, I try to not deal with stress. I not have it in my I'll avoid it at all costs because I want to keep my mental health, my well-being. And again, you have to find your release. And you can do it through the doctor or through prayer or through whatever release you have, but people will have a need to find that relief.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to stop just for the sake of time because I wanted to hit on something else that was really important. It was Attorney North talked about being one of the few African-American attorneys. And I wanted to ask you guys about what can we continue to do to bridge the gap. I am American Bar Association scholar, and one of the projects I have been given is to see why black males, the attrition rate is so high. They leave the practice of law after about 3 years. It drops off drastically. The same with black women and women in general. But that's the order. Black males, women of color, women in general. So what can we do to, number one, attract our next generation to the practice of law? What can we do to retain the talent that we have now? So that's the question. And Mr. Dennis, I'll let you start off on that one.
You know, we are the Lee County Bar Association, and I guess if somebody asked me if there was a minority, a black, brown person who asked me, you know, what it was like to practice here and whether they should practice here, you know, the first thing is I think we have to acknowledge some difficult truths. This is not Lee County, this is Robert E. Lee County. And that was a name that this county chose, not because Robert E. Lee had any sort of connection to the people here. I wasn't there when they made that decision, so I can only guess why they might have chosen that name. But we have to start acknowledging that we live in a community that is extremely segregated. We live in a community that is literally divided by railroad tracks. We live in a community that lacks African American professionals in comparison to the population. We talk about moving forward, and we talk about getting past those issues and starting to be more inclusive. Before we can do that, we have to acknowledge where we've been. And we haven't been willing to do that. There's been a circle of power and governance that has kept a certain part of our community down. It hasn't been this organic creation where we have one community that is socioeconomically more burdened than another. And we're all responsible for that. As professionals in this community, we're all responsible for that. So I think we need to take a hard look before we start talking about what we can do to move forward. I think one of the first things we can do to move forward is we can acknowledge where we've been. And we have to do that honestly. We have to look at what's ugly. We have to look in, as I say my wife all the time, we got to look into me and naked. Even though we may not like what we see, we got to be honest about it. And once we do that, we can start building a foundation for more equity in this community. And just really briefly, you know, the last time that we actually saw sentencing statistics as far as sentencing parity that I am aware of was 2016, the article by the Sarasota Herald Tribune, Bias on the Bench. And if you look at the numbers in that report, and this is not saying that it's attributable necessarily to the state attorney's office or to judges. What I am saying is there was a problem. There was a problem where in almost every case, black and brown people were given higher sentences than their white counterparts with the same history and charged with the same crime. So these are the types of things that we need to be asking, we need to be curious about, and we need to open up and be vulnerable enough to say, we have a problem that we need to address.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think that segues perfectly into my last question for the panel. I always say I hate to come in someone's house and tell them their baby is ugly. You know why? Because there's nothing you can do about an ugly baby. But today, we can do something about this. And so I'm going to ask a question. What do people who are not black, who really want to support, what can they do? People who are not, a minority, who have not necessarily been affected, and I say people from a point of privilege also. What can they do to help move this cause forward and improve the issues going forward? And I'm going to start with Attorney Barris.
I think that one of the things that they can do is start empowering black legal organizations or black organizations. I would also like to see less segregation. I agree with Peter in his evaluation that this county is very segregated. I feel like if we can work as a community, we can overcome this. I think something that the Black Lives Matters movement did was brought a lot of other people out of their areas and brought them together to join for this cause. And I think that we really need to see that in our community as well. I don't think that this is something that we can solve on our own. We need everybody to solve this issue.
Attorney Makisha.
Well, I think one of the things that, and this is the toughest part, and I know that Peter mentioned about vulnerability. It's being, it's really hard to know what people are going through if you don't talk to them personally and engage. And it's a really tough thing. I know, and I got to think about it like in my office, right after everything had happened with George Floyd, I know how impactful it was. And I was in a unique position that I realize now that I was able, much like you mentioned, to be able to just reach out to the administrative heads. And having that access and having people being willing to respond, even though there may have been concerns about giving the perfect response, they still shared their feelings and support. And I would just say, even if it's not perfect or you don't know everything that you need to do, just reach out and start a conversation and let the people who, the minority friends or people who are in your agencies and offices know that they are valued, and then start the conversation. And I think that will open up the doors, and those people can then feel comfortable talking about some needs that you may not even have been aware that they've had.
Basically fostering that environment of a place where individuals can have these type of discussions, because these are hard discussions and they're uncomfortable, but I love having them because these are the discussions that move forward. These are the discussions that move things forward. Does anybody else have any other suggestions?
I would just say that if people would get engaged, that means being involved, especially with young people. You can start with elementary schools, middle schools, high school, college level. Just be engaged with them, because the kids, the young people, they are not really interested in your color, your politics, or anything. They're interested in you being interested in them. And I was speaking one time at Franklin Park's elementary school, and it was a professional work day. And so the little kid says, "Oh, you're a judge," and I had all my little stuff out there. They says, "Where are the girl judges?" So they saw me, but they were like, "Where are the girl judges?" And so that's what we need to show them, that you are open to helping them no matter who they are, what color they are, and you're showing an interest in them, and that's what kids need. And if you're employing somebody, sure. If you're not employing someone that doesn't look like you, you're not necessarily being diverse. And it doesn't matter what diversity is, whether it's a female or male, or it's someone from a different country, or someone from across the street, or someone from that section of Lee County. I've always considered living in Lee County as I live in all of Lee County. I live in Fort Myers. That means not all of Fort Myers. There's no place I won't go in Fort Myers, and there's no place I won't go in Lee County. So I've always done that. Now, whether that was liked or not, I've been there because I always figured that I live here just like everybody else. I'm going to participate. I'm going to be engaged because I love people. That was my whole idea. So if you love yourself and you can love people, I think most people you'll get along with them, or they will respect you. And you can understand where a person is coming from, whether they like you or not. But again, if people respect you, then hey, I can deal with that.
Thank you. And I think what I've learned through all of this is that you can come from a different background, you can have different political beliefs, you can have different stances on things. But if you have a level of respect and camaraderie, and I know this person and they know me, that has gapped so many bridges for me professionally and personally. Spending time with people who don't look like me. Secret is Ida Nemotin stole me from the Florida bar. And it was because she really just took an interest in what I was doing, wanted to know more about diversity, wanted me to train her staff more, and now I'm happy to be part of a staff. And the thing is, who would not want to work for an employer who values them as a person? Because people don't leave jobs, they leave bad situations, okay? And not saying my situation was bad before, but this was, I was like, oh, working for Ita? Okay, I'll do it. Because I knew it was going to be a positive experience, and I knew it was going to give me another notch in my belt and experience. But also, I knew I was going to work for someone who had genuine care and concern. And the last thing I'll add, if we're going to talk about advocating, everybody is not an educator on what's going on in the African American community. And everybody may not want to talk about it just like I do. But there may be some people who want to, and allow them to, but educate yourself. So don't put that on the person to do that for you, number one. And number two, the best thing that you can do is be a sponsor. And a sponsor is somebody who speaks up for you when you're not in the room to speak for yourself. A sponsor is somebody who gives people who are deserving the opportunity and who highlights talents and moves them to the next level without obligation. And I think that is one thing that we all can do, is highlight the talents of our colleagues, the people around us, when we see something in them. So I wanted to thank our panel today. I wish we had more time because I had some more questions I wanted to dig into. But I hope you guys got a good glimpse into some of the adversity, but also leave here today with a little bit of hope. And before I leave today, one of the things that I always say now, and one of the things that I ask myself every day is this. After we've seen everything, we are living a part of history right now. Do you guys realize that? This is a part of history. What will the history books say about us? Will it say that we were complacent in the face of adversity? Will it say that we stood by and did nothing while people were suffering? Or will it say that we were compassionate? Will it say that we personally stood up as leaders? And then will it say that we did everything that we could to root out injustice? So what will your charge be? What will your legacy be? That's the question I leave with you guys today. Thank you. I know.
Present things and be able to speak at the same time.
Don't worry, I got the enough.
Can you speak every time for me? I'd like to thank our moderator, Adrianette. Is that right? All right, perfect. All right, and I would like to thank our panelists. I got little goodie bags that Lauren put together. Thank you, Lauren, too, for putting this luncheon on and organizing. It was amazing. Want to help me hand them out? Oh, awesome. When I picked them, they were all organized, and I just... All right. And we don't have a membership luncheon in March, but we do have a shrimp boil in March at the Alliance for the Arts, March 27th. I'd also like to thank Joe North again of the North Law Firm. Thank you. And again, thank you to our panelists as well. And thank you all for attending. Have a nice weekend.